It's the morning edition of the Weather Xtreme video. This is for December 23rd, Tuesday, Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to you and your family. A lot to talk about. We have the dual threat of heavy rain and strong to severe storms for Alabama through tomorrow morning, with obviously a lot of people traveling and folks coming in. Many questions. We'll see if we can answer all of them. Let's start, as we do in the morning, with the big picture, if you will. This is the water vapor satellite view across the nation. And those are the contours at 500 millibars, about 18,000 feet up. And you can see a large-scale, full-latitude trough over the central U.S. And here where we are, we have this active and disturbed southwest flow aloft with rising air motion in advance of the trough, and that's the large-scale setup for active weather today. That was a radar before daybreak at 5:05. Pretty quiet. We've got some rain and heavier showers over Dallas and Perry counties, but at this point, we had no severe weather problems to start the day. Temperatures around the southeast, it's 66 in Mobile. You can clearly pick out that warm front. It's pretty much over the far southern part of Mississippi and Alabama. South of the warm front, you've got those mid to upper 60s. North of the warm front, we've got 50s up here. And also note the wedge, cold air damming. That's bringing colder air in from the northeast, and Atlanta's sitting at 42. And that could help to mitigate the severe weather risk for northeast Alabama later today and tonight, but everybody's going to get soaked. This is the Cape early this morning at daybreak. Convective available potential energy, where you see the red line, that is Cape in excess of 500 joules per kilogram. That is beginning to nose up along the Alabama-Mississippi border, almost to Butler and Demopolis and Sweetwater and Linden. And we'll be watching the northward progress of that. That'll be the key in the severe weather threat. How far north will that unstable air go today? That's always an interesting battle, and these cold season systems like this can be tricky. All right, if you're traveling, there's the big picture. First off, here in our state, there's a flash flood watch for about the southern half of Alabama. The flash flood watch is basically along and south of US 80, the counties in green. We've got to the north snow issues. We've got a winter storm warning for parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, a handful of winter weather advisories up that way. And then down into the mountains of New Mexico, winter storm issues there. And high wind warnings in effect for parts of eastern Colorado and far western Kansas. And up in the northeast, a few scattered winter weather advisories as well. That's the day one convective outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. And it's beginning to be pretty clear to me there's a little confusion over the slight and the marginal risk. The marginal is the lowest in threat. The slight risk is a higher risk than a marginal risk. So the slight risk is the standard risk, and I know that word is horribly confusing, but we have the standard slight risk in effect today for that part of Alabama south of a line from Hamilton to near Leeds, the eastern part of the Birmingham metro, then down to about Eufaula. A marginal risk from Muscle Shoals down to Anniston. Northeast Alabama, Gadsden, and points north, not in a severe weather risk, as the cold air damming will hopefully keep severe weather from happening there. This is the tornado outlook today and tonight. Keep in mind this runs through 6 a.m. tomorrow, and this is basically showing the higher percentages, a 5% chance over that part of Alabama, roughly from Tuscaloosa down to Mobile, and then much of central and south Mississippi. And what that means is the 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of a given point. And that's a pretty standard number. I know it looks awfully low, but keep in mind the tornado is a very small thing. And then tomorrow for travelers on Christmas Eve, marginal risks for severe weather over parts of Ohio and Kentucky, and that's for hail up there. And then from near Virginia Beach, Virginia, all the way down to Fort Myers and West Palm Beach, Florida, and that's a marginal severe weather risk. Now, keep in mind, heavy rain is a big deal. This is the QPF, put it up on Google Earth, that the big bullseye is 5 inches over Tallahassee, Florida. The 3-inch line runs up to about Phoenix City, down to Troy, Greenville, and just north of Mobile. Birmingham is in a 2-inch zone, as is Anniston and Gadsden. Tuscaloosa, about 1.5 inches. Yeah, but you can see that's the reason the flash flood watch is up for the southern half of the state, but we'll keep an eye on things. I'll show you the modeling on the QPF here in just a little bit. Let's walk you through the models. This is the GFS, the 06Z run, valid today at noon. And this is at 500 millibars. There's your trough axis west of the state. Let me just walk you through the surface projections. This is today at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., the surface low at that point should be near Starkville, Mississippi. The colors on this map, this is Cape, the instability. And the really big numbers are down in the Gulf. The amounts are lower here, but it doesn't take a lot of Cape to get severe weather going. We've got some instability as far north as Tennessee. Midnight tonight, the surface low is west of Nashville, 1,000 millibars. And it's actually not deepening at this point. And again, the air over Alabama is unstable. Not a tremendous amount of instability, but sufficient certainly for strong, maybe severe storms. Then by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, the surface low deepens a bit, under 1,000 millibars south of Indianapolis. And you can see a narrow tongue of instability over East Alabama and West Georgia. And the key is just watching these dew points. Let me show you the HER model. This is 6 o'clock this evening. This is a good high-resolution model. The dew point in Montgomery soars to 67. It's very unstable air. Troy is showing 69. And certainly in that part of the state, the instability is greatly sufficient for severe weather. But the dew point in Birmingham is 59. It's just not quite there. And that's the big question. Can those higher dew points advect northward later tonight? Let's go to the high-res NAM. This is valid tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, and it says, yes, those higher dew points can reach Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, low 60s, but still those really high dew points, the mid-60s and above, stay down there from about Alexander City, Montgomery south. We note the wedge, the cold air damming, kind of keeping northeast Alabama cool and stable, places like Gadsden and Fort Payne. But again, if you're just looking at one parameter that's easy to watch, we kind of keep a close eye on that dew point. This is what the NAM looks like at 6 o'clock this evening, and you can see just a big mass of rain and storms. And it's going to be cloudy. We don't expect any sun today. It's going to be raining a pretty good chunk of the day. And a lot of times with a big rain-cooled air mass, that tends to keep the air stable, and it makes it harder for the warm front to move northward down to the south. Here's the back edge of the rain. This is tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. A little slower here. So it looks like the rain will be ending from west to east tomorrow morning between 6 o'clock and maybe noon. And the rain should be mostly out of here by 12 o'clock tomorrow. We'll check some of the severe weather parameters. We'll just pick midnight tonight. That's kind of a good midpoint. That's when the surface low is up there around Memphis or Nashville. And this is the low-level jet, about 5,000 feet off the ground. And these numbers are just not overwhelming. This showing a few little spots where there's 50 knots, but it's mostly in the 30 and 40 knot range over Alabama. That's not exactly a big number for severe weather. It's sufficient. This is the bulk shear in the lowest levels of the atmosphere, surface to 925 millibars. And they've got the higher shear where the air is stable, over northeast Alabama, and that's just not overwhelming. You look down there in South Alabama where you got those really high dew points and the shear values are fairly low. And this is the Energy Helicity Index, the EHI. You want to see shades of green. That's where it hits one unit, and it hits one around Mobile, and that's about it. So, this is not an overwhelming severe weather threat. Could we see severe weather? Yes, and understand there could be a tornado somewhere. All it takes is one. And if it comes down your street, this is your big day. But, the parameters are just not that overwhelming for our end of the state. Check the QPF coming off the high-res NAM. This is the other problem, potential for flooding. And again, we're finally starting to see some better model agreement in the placement of the heavy rain. It's got these, and it's showing dark brown shades down there toward Troy and Luverne. That's 5 inches. The shades of red, that's over 2 inches. And I think for a lot of people, they're going to wind up with 2 inches or more here statewide. With this thing, and certainly that could create some flooding. But again, for the moment, the Weather Service maintains the flash flood watch over the southern half of the state. This is midday tomorrow at noon, and you can see the bulk of the rain is out of here. And tomorrow will be a day where temperatures could very well start around 60 in the low 60s, and then fall through the 50s during the day. And Christmas Day looks just perfect. Bright, sunny weather. We start the day in the 30s, the high in the 50s, and as we've talked about, that is exactly where we ought to be on Christmas Day, right at average levels. Friday looks good. Sky should be mostly sunny, the high close to 60. But Saturday, showers return as the weekend begins with a cold front coming in. I don't think it'll be a big rain event, not a severe weather event. And this run says, hey, we could be wet at times on Sunday as well. That's a change from the ongoing forecast as the front becomes parallel to the upper airflow and stalls out. So it looks like we'll need to mention a chance of showers Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday, we get back in drier air, but not really cool air. The high Monday will be right around 60 if this is right, and that looks like a dry day. And this is a week from today, Tuesday, the 30th of December. Big troughing back in the southwest United States, and cold air moving down into Montana. It's a 1,053 millibar high up there, very cold air, but not for us at that point. It's very close. The next day, this is Christmas Eve. Ooh, boy, that's close to winter weather mischief. Did I say Christmas Eve? This is New Year's Eve. I'm sorry, December 31st. That's a 1044 cold high pushing down cold air and a precipitation mass moving northward. Somebody could see some snow or ice problems, and this is suggesting if we have any issues, it's going to be over Tennessee and Kentucky. But boy, it's a close call. That could be a New Year's Eve mess for somebody there. But for us, that looks wet. A couple of days later, on January 3rd, we warm up a little bit. Still, that looks like another rain producer. And on the 7th, the end of the forecast, heights are below average to the north of us, and that looks, pretty chilly. Here's a look at temperatures coming off the ensemble. You can see that shot of colder air around the new year. Highs going in the 30s. This has got a low of 22 for January 1st, the morning of New Year's Day. And then moderation after that. So it looks like a pretty good little cold pop as the new year begins. That's it for the Weather Extreme video today. We'll have notes in the blog. Next video here, if weather permits. If the weather's not too active by 4 o'clock this afternoon. If you can't catch us this evening on the live stream or the television side, ABC 3340 News at 4, 5, 6, and 10 o'clock. And, of course, updates throughout the day on the blog. That's AlabamaWX.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and God bless.